Hello, everybody, and welcome in live to another edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange Show here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football on the SEC channel and the SG1 Sports Texas channel. I appreciate you guys joining me. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Remember, guys, we're going to be here every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Had to move it back today, so we're here on Thursday, but I'm going to be here at least once a week, usually Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps out what we're trying to grow. Please, guys, we're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to grow this brand. So please hit that like button, subscribe, share this with your friends, family, everyone. We don't just do Texas. We do all the SEC teams. We're new here. We're the new big dog on the block. I'm not even going to say the big dog. We're the new dog on the block. So welcome us to the SEC. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you guys for being here. And before we get started, if you're going to go to a game, it's college basketball season. Go to ticketsmarter.com. Type in code BIG for $10 off a purchase of $100 or more, and type in code BIG20 for $20 off a purchase of $300 or more at ticketsmarter.com. Don't be dumb, be smarter. Ticketsmarter.com. Thank you guys for being here tonight. It has been a busy week since we got back or since last week. We have gained recruits, we have lost recruits, we have gained transfer portal guys. No one else has entered the transfer portal, so that's a good part. And Texas is on fire, potentially on a super run here of transfer portal additions. We will talk about that. And let's jump into it. So, portal additions. Let's welcome these new guys in. Um, Remember, we already have Matthew Golden from Houston. We already have Trey Moore from UTSA, and we have Andrew Makuba from Clemson. Matthew Golden, great player for Houston, their number one wide receiver. I think he's going to do big things. Trey Moore led his conference in sacks with 14 last year. Amazing player off the edge that Texas desperately needs. Him and Colin Simmons coming in, paired with Barron Sorrell and Ethan Burke. Obviously, good things. Then the secondary, we were always weak at safety, kind of weak at corner, but more weak at safety. So Andrew Makuba coming in really helps. We'll also talk about Jahdae Barron coming back in a little bit. But we add the number one wide receiver in the portal in Isaiah Bond. Fantastic player, someone that Texas desperately needed out of the portal. We have not had a number one wide receiver yet. This is our number one guy. This is who I think is going to be the number one guy going into next year. 48 receptions, 668 yards, 4 touchdowns, an absolute speedster with a 10.48 100-meter dash. Fantastic player, and it's someone Texas needed. Now you go into a room with Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. We'll get to Silas Bolden, Ryan Niblett, DeAndre Moore, and not even to mention Ryan Wingo and Jonte Cook. Very good class for Texas in this wide receiver group. I don't think Texas has an A.D. Mitchell or an Xavier Worthy. I think all of these guys, there's 2 or 3 guys that are like a step below that. And that's okay. Those are top 40 picks in the NFL draft. There's a possibility both of them get drafted in the first round because I think Xavier Worthy is going to absolutely blaze it at the combine. I expect 4.3 from him at most. So there's a chance he goes in the first round too, but I think A.D. Mitchell ends up as a first round pick. And I think in the aggregate, guys, you can see them being replaced. Like if you're telling me Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, and Silas Bolden come in and do what they need to do and produce like they produce at their schools, and to a higher level because you're playing with a better offensive mind than you were at your other schools. You're playing with a better quarterback and you're playing with a better offensive line all across the board. You can say that. I think Steve Sarkisian's definitely better than anything Jonathan Smith, Nick Saban had on staff or anything like that. And at Houston, obviously with Dana Holgorsen. So I think Matthew Golden, this is going to be hard to do. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, and Silas Bolden come in and in the aggregate replace A.D. Mitchell and possibly Xavier Worthy. I think those 3 guys are able to get 80% of the production. So now you're looking at 1 or 2 more guys in the wide receiver room, Jonte Cook, Ryan Wingo, Ryan Niblett, DeAndre Moore, 1 or 2 of those guys to replace the other 20 or 10%. And I think that's a possibility. I think they could even do better. So it's going to be very interesting. Another guy that we got, Kendrick Blackshire. In 25 games at Alabama, he only had 25 tackles. I think they have a bigger role for him here at Texas, and I think he can live up to that role. Do I think this guy's going to come in and just dominate, be like, wow, who the hell is that? No. I've watched him. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He is a backup who will come in and you'll miss maybe a slight beat. But you'll see Anthony Hill hopefully take that next step and take over for Jalen Ford. You'll have Mo Blackwell play, and David Benda is back. So that really helps out the linebacker room. We'll get into possible replacements coming in as well. But the linebacker room with Kendrick Blackshire, it's a solid room. It's not a great room. It's not a terrible room. It's a solid room. It's a C plus room. So hopefully these guys can come in and just execute the game plan and play pretty good. But we'll see what happens there. I don't expect a lot from Kendrick Blackshire, but again, a nice pickup. One second, let me jump into. I think Texas will hold their own offensively in the SEC, but I think you'll really struggle defensively, at least right now, Joey. That is a possibility, Joey. Offensively, I think we could probably have the best offense in the conference. I think it comes down to, let's see, I don't think Georgia is going to have like anything crazy offensively. I do like Carson Beck, but I think our weapons are better than Georgia's at this point. They lost Brock Bowers. They lost Ladd McConkey. They do bring in a Vanderbilt wide receiver. I believe his last name is Humphrey. So he's a good piece. But they do, and Oscar Delp's pretty good at the tight end position for Georgia. So I still think we're better there. We're going to be better in Alabama offensively. I'm trying to think better in Oklahoma. Maybe LSU, maybe, but they lost a lot. They do replace with Nussmeier at quarterback, and they do replace with CJ Daniels coming in from Liberty at wide receiver to replace Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, but they still need another wide receiver. I think Texas might actually have the best offense in the SEC by a lot. I think if they can just be average defensively in the SEC, I think you have a chance to win the conference. So it's going to be very interesting. Let's talk about another guy that I mentioned briefly, Silas Bolden. Silas Bolden is a hell of a pickup. People are talking about a depth piece. When I watch this guy, I don't see depth. I see explosiveness. I see agility. I see a guy that makes things happen after the catch. To me, I think he's going to play a lot bigger role in this offense than people are realizing. I think Silas Bolden is a freak. I mean, he's one of those people, guys, straight in, like speed. He may not be the fastest guy on the team, but side to side, he is probably the quickest. It's insane. The guy jukes people out of their shoes. It's really fun to watch. He caught my eye. I watched 3 or 4 Oregon State's games this year, and as soon as I saw him catch, I'm like, who the hell is that guy? And it's him. And then when I saw him enter the portal, and I said, Texas, look at him. Texas, look at him. They looked at him. He's committed to Texas. I think you're going to see him returning kicks and punts as well. He's very good at that. He had 3 opportunities to be a punt returner this year at Oregon State. He averaged over 30 yards per punt return and took one back in 3 opportunities. I think you're going to see Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, and Jaden Blue, who showed some explosiveness in that Washington first half returning kicks. I think you'll see him return kicks and punts. And guys, it really does help if he's going to be good at special teams, because we lost Xavier Worthy and Keelan Robinson. They both returned punts and kicks for us. We also lost Keaton Crawford, who was a good gunner. So Jeff Banks tweeted out as soon as Silas Bolden came in about special teams, and I think he's going to be one of the best special teams players in the country. And I think he's going to be a 10 to 15 play guy that when he catches the ball has a chance to take it to the house. He's going to be an upgraded version of what people thought they were getting with Keelan Robinson, because he can stay on his feet a little bit better than Keelan, and obviously a much better pass catcher and route runner, seeing as he is a wide receiver and not a running back. So I am very, very happy with the portal so far. I mean, you're getting 3 top 10 wide receivers out of the portal. You're getting a average replacement at linebacker in Kendrick Blackshire, and then you're getting a great edge rusher in Trey Moore, and one of the best safeties, if not the best safety, in Andrew Makuba. So this staff has killed it. They are not done. I'll go back into the comments, then we'll talk about the possibilities of other guys joining this as well, and then we'll talk about some of the sad stuff that did happen. We did lose a recruit. We obviously lost Bo Davis, but we'll talk about that in a minute. The Isaiah Bond addition is a big win for Texas. Yes, it is, Jackson. Very big win. Someone, like I said, can be the number 1 wide receiver on a playoff caliber team. At this point, guys, it'd be a gigantic disappointment if Texas does not make the playoff to me. Our schedule isn't super hard. I would say it's one of the 3 or 4 easiest schedules going into the SEC next year, and that's going to the SEC. It's not an easy schedule overall, for sure. We just have too much talent. We have to make the 12-team playoff. Like I said on Mark's channel before getting on here, I think 9-3 is the minimum, especially if Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan. If Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan, we should beat Michigan. We're already favored very early. I know it's early, but again, I can't go into the future. I'm just going to talk on what about now. We're favored by 1.5 on the road versus Michigan. I think that's about right. I think we should be favored. We're the better team right now, and we're not done. That's the cool thing. And if Jim Harbaugh leaves, there's a possibility Texas gains 1 or 2 guys from Michigan. I don't think many people will leave Michigan because Sherrone Moore it's very close to Jim Harbaugh. It's going to be like a nice meshing. They might lose 3 or 4 guys, but I wouldn't expect much more than that. If they lose more than that, that's going to be very interesting. But I think we may be able to get one guy from Michigan, but Arizona's a possibility too that we'll touch on. Um, I am in the hospital in the lungs and bronchial tubes. They have not assigned me a room number yet. Damn. Well, prayers out to you, Joey. I hope you get better. Obviously, your West Virginia Mountaineers had a good year keeping Neil Brown, and you beat us in basketball. It was pathetic to watch that game. Texas, God, I don't even want to talk about their basketball team because last year still frustrates me. They should have been a Final Four team. That second half versus Miami and the Elite Eight still going to bother me. I'm praying that you get better, feeling better. Yeah, best wishes and prayers out to you, Joey. I barely have my sound up. LO hard to hear. I get that. Definitely in the hospital too. You probably don't want people looking at you either. But it's going to be interesting, guys, because Texas, like I said, they retained a couple key pieces. Honestly, guys, if Texas was able to convince Byron Murphy to stay at this point, I think Texas, I would put money on Texas to win the national championship. That's how good Byron Murphy and T'Vondre Sweat were if we could have kept one of them. Obviously, T'Vondre Sweat didn't have any more eligibility, but Byron Murphy did. It would have been awesome to keep him. And then we'll just jump into the guys we lost real quick, and then we'll go back to the possible additions. So we lost Jamari Caldwell. I'm not going to say we lost him because he was at Texas, but we lost him in the sense of he was going to come to Texas if Bo Davis didn't go to LSU. It had been reported for like a month, guys. It was about grades. And then once they got that settled out, he was going to come to Texas. And then Bo Davis is lost, and Oregon comes in and takes him. He's a good player. He's second team All Big 12, great run defender. And on top of that, 6.5 sacks. He's a really good player. Props to him. He's going to be good at Oregon. That's a really good pickup for them. I think Oregon is setting themselves up to be a national championship contender moving into the Big Ten as well. And then we lose DeAndre Robinson. He's a composite 4-star out of Florida. We lost him because of Bo Davis, too. He wanted out of his letter of intent. I have no hard or ill will feelings towards him. Good luck for him. I don't know why he wanted out of Texas to go to Florida. I think there's actually opportunity for you to play here on a better team, and you're going to Florida. By the way, I think you probably make more NIL money at Texas. Maybe not, because maybe Florida's getting desperate and throwing crazy money around to keep guys, because we did take one of the two best safeties in the country, and Xavier Filsaime, from them. And Billy Napier could be fired. So I don't understand that move from him. I know LSU was interested as well. If I'm him, just follow Bo Davis to LSU. That would make more sense than going to Florida. I know it's your home state, but there's a really good chance Billy Napier gets fired. So I don't understand why DeAndre Robinson wants to go to Florida, but good wishes to him. It sucks that we lost both of them. That is a position we need to replace, because Alfred Collins does come back, and he's a good player, but we've yet to see him reach that upper echelon. I think Alfred Collins will take a step forward, but he's going to need to take 2 steps forward to match Byron Murphy's production. I don't see that happening, but do I think he can do 80 to 85% of what Byron Murphy did last year? Yes. And if we can get one more defensive tackle in the portal, whether it's this window with all these coaches leaving or the next window, if they can be just a C-plus guy and have Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, and those guys rotate in, then that's fine. Because I think the edges guys are going to be way better than they were last year. You're going to have Ethan Burke in his second year. By the way, played with a torn meniscus like the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season, or he had surgery. So he played after surgery. He only took a week off and played. And then you have Barron Sorrell back for his senior year, along with Colin Simmons, the number 1 defensive end in the class, with Trey Moore, the number 1 portal addition at the defensive end position. So, I mean, the edges are going to be good. I think the secondary, if we get Jabbar Muhammad, which we'll jump into in a second, of the portal possibilities, is going to be a strength. You're going to have Derek Williams in his sophomore season at the safety position. You're going to have Andrew Makuba at his natural position in safety instead of at the nickelback, which he's perfectly capable of playing. He was a top 75 players on most NFL draft boards at the nickelback position. So he can definitely play there. And I would suspect with Jahdae Barron coming back, our nickelback, that you'll see Jahdae Barron and Andrew Makuba rotate at the nickelback position and go back to, and one of them will be at safety. And you'll see him, like I said, switch positions. I think that's what Texas is looking for, is a versatile secondary room. And then you have Malik Muhammad coming back, the number 1 cornerback from last year. And I think he's going to be fantastic. He was already graded out really high. I think he's going to take a big step forward. And then Terrence Brooks, who I think is only 20 years old as a junior, he's going to get better. He was still pretty good last year. He had a couple rough games down the stretch, but I still believe in him. And then Gavin Holmes, the Wake Forest transfer, who played okay at times last year, is also coming back. So this secondary is going to be better. And if we get Jabbar Muhammad, and we'll jump into that now, there's a really good chance that Texas has one of the best secondaries in the country. If you can have both Muhammad's on the outside with Andrew Makuba and Jahdae Barron, one of the two in the slot, and then one of them at the safety with Derek Williams, who's I think going to be one of the best safeties in the country next year, and then Terrence Brooks and Gavin Holmes are your cornerback depth, along with young freshmen like Kobe Black. This secondary could be the strength of the team next year. I honestly, going into the season, would feel like that is the strength of the team. And then I would say the defensive edges, and then the linebacker, you still need one, and you still need a defensive tackle. But overall, this defense, if they get two more pieces, one at the linebacker position and one at the defensive tackle position, I think this defense can be overall better than it was last year. Are you guys really playing Michigan next year? I have you losing to Ole Miss, Michigan and Georgia. We do not play Ole Miss next year, Joey, unless it is in the SEC championship game. We do play Georgia. It is at home. That's big. Then, yes, we play Michigan second week of the season at Michigan. Let's see. Our next hardest game we play, I believe, Kentucky at home. Play Oklahoma, obviously, in the Red River rivalry. A&M at the end of the season. It's really hard, guys. Like, the schedule isn't that hard. You play Florida, but I think Billy Napier, we play him in November, will be fired by that time. So, I mean, if you split between Georgia and Michigan, you're going to go 10-2. That's all you have to do. Now, if you lose to both them, you'll probably end up 9-3. I don't know if 9-3 with our schedule gets us in next year. 10-2 100% does. I don't see a world where Texas goes 10-2 next year and is left out of the college football playoff. That'd be crazy. That would suck because I think this team can win a national championship. I think they're going to be really good. I think the game of the year next year right now is probably Georgia at Texas. I forget what week that is. I think it's week 4 or 5. I think that's the game of the year going to next year. The ticket price for that are going to be insane. Colby covers, where does Caleb Downs go? Caleb Downs, I think he's going to Ohio State. I do. I think the longer this plays out, the better it goes for Ohio State. If he's going to Georgia, he'll make that decision to me by tomorrow night. If he doesn't make it by tomorrow night, it goes through the weekend, he's going to go to Georgia. Ohio State. So that's another thing. So if we get Jabbar Muhammad, he's going to take his visit to Alabama. To me, he's going to go to Texas if he doesn't commit to Alabama by the end of the week, and he doesn't visit Oregon because he wants to visit Oregon. They lost their secondary coach. Otherwise, I think they would have landed him by now. Again, Jabbar Muhammad and Malik Muhammad are cousins, so that does help out here a little bit. But I think he would have ended up at Oregon if they didn't lose their secondary coach. But he went to Michigan State, and I think that helped Texas. I think that made them their number one. He is still going to take his Alabama visit. To me, if he's not committed to Alabama by Sunday, which most people thought the visit did well because you have Texas players tweeting out and Texas people on the inside tweeting out that Jabbar Muhammad is basically going to go to Texas. But if he doesn't commit to Alabama by Sunday night, I think he's going to be a Texas Longhorn if he doesn't visit Oregon. Now, if he visits Oregon, then this guy is truly, it's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen then. But for us Texas fans, just hope he doesn't visit Oregon and he doesn't commit by Sunday night. Then I think he's going to end up at Texas. Another one, Amari Niblack. I think this is done by tomorrow. I think Amari Niblack will be a Texas Longhorn. It was going to be between Benjamin Urasic out of Stanford, who's a good tight end, and Amari Niblack to come here for Texas. Texas was going to get one of them. In my opinion, they chose wisely of picking Amari Niblack. He had 20 receptions for 327 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was the number 1 tight end in the class last year. This guy's more explosive, and he kind of balances out Gunnar Helm, who's coming back. I think Gunnar Helm's going to be a good player. I think Gunnar Helm's probably going to be a 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick in the NFL, so he's a good player. But he's not Amari Niblack. Amari Niblack has special talent, special speed, special capabilities with the ball in his hand. Gunnar Helm doesn't really possess that. Gunnar Helm is a possession tight end who's a good blocker. I like the way they balance each other out. This Texas offense is ridiculous. You're going to have Amari Niblack, Gunnar Helm with 4 of 5 offensive linemen returning, with Quinn Ewers in his 3rd year in the Sark system, with Ryan Wingo, Jonte Cook, Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett at the wide receiver position. Sark, you have no excuse. If you're not averaging 35-plus points a game next year, that is on you. This team is complete on the offensive side of the ball. It's the defense that I said, if they can just be 30th in scoring next year, I think this team can easily make the Final Four again. Ole Miss isn't on the schedule, but Mississippi State is. Yeah, it's the first game for Texas. That's what I'm saying, too. We luck out. We have Mississippi State first-year head coach, Texas A&M first-year head coach. I think Florida will have an interim when we play them. The team that is sneaky to me is Kentucky. I think Kentucky worries me. That's the only game that really worries me, and that isn't like a big brand name. And then we play Vanderbilt. I'm hoping to go to that game. Tickets don't seem to be too expensive. I need to order those in the next 2 to 3 months. And then the hotel will probably be the most expensive thing. But guess what? If I have to drive all night to get back home, I'll just do that because I'm not spending $300 to stay in Nashville. Sorry, I know Nashville's fun, but I'm not spending $300 on a hotel for one night. Joey, oh, okay, Mississippi State, not Ole Miss. You'll win that game, so I could see you go 10-2. Yeah, guys, 8-4 is like catastrophic. Like people would have to get injured at key positions, and like the only one, like think about this. Let's go through this. Quinn Ewers gets hurt. You have Arch Manning. Should we still lose a game other than Georgia, Michigan, and then throw in Oklahoma or Texas A&M? No. Offensive line wise, we are stacked at that. We have done a very good job recruiting. So if we lose one guy, that shouldn't change much. Now, if we lose two, that will be an interesting thing. A wide receiver position, we're too stacked. It's honestly defense. We don't have a lot of depth on defense. The talent, upper end talent is there. So it's going to be interesting. But we also, yeah, you're right, Jackson. We do play Arkansas. We should beat Arkansas. He's also on the hot seat. We play a lot of people that are either first-year head coaches or on the hot seat. So it's going to be very interesting. Arkansas is in rebuild mode. I don't think they're ready to come together next year. I think I could be wrong, but I agree. I'm not really scared of them. Plus, guys, it's going to be a return to the scene of the crime for Steve Sarkisian. That was his first big game at Texas where I think the lights finally turned on for him. And he's like, wow, this is going to be a lot bigger of a rebuild than I thought. They absolutely killed us. They ran for over 300 yards. So I think we're going to kill them. I think we're skull drag them. I think it'll be like 38-13 or something like that. So I just don't see us losing that game. Like I said, I could see us losing it like Kentucky, surprisingly, maybe Texas A&M since it is at home, but we're not losing to Oklahoma either. Oklahoma's not beating us with Jackson Arnold, and they're not beating us 2 years in a row when we played like crap last year is the only reason they beat us. So I don't expect us to lose that game either. So like I said, the possibility of Jamar Muhammad and Amari Niblack is huge. I think Amari Niblack is done by Friday. I think Jamar Muhammad, if he's going to come to Texas, will be done by next Tuesday or Wednesday. So keep an eye on that for Texas fans and SEC fans. Also, some whispers out there, guys. If you're interested in 3 guys that could hop into the portal that Texas would 100% be interested in and would really help, 3 names to keep an eye out on are Jacob Manu from Arizona. He's a sophomore who had 105 tackles last year, 6.5 sacks, 1 interception, all Pac-12 defense. Fantastic players. Guys, if we end up with Jacob Manu, Anthony Hill, and David Bennett linebacker, that is a better linebacking core than last year because you're going to have Anthony Hill who will be better than he was last year, David Bender who will be better than he was last year, and then you're basically replacing Jalen Ford, who had his worst year here at Texas in the past 3 years, for Jacob Manu, who's a stud and will have 2 years left in his junior and senior year. And the reason why you keep an eye out for him, Johnny Nansen took over the linebacker position, obviously a couple weeks ago. There was rumors that he could become the Arizona head coach. They chose the San Jose State head coach. Thank God, because we would have had to replace a defensive line coach and we'll talk about who I think that will be. And another linebacker coach because we lost Jeff Choate to Nevada, but he's going to stay. We did lose for a quick 4 days. We had Dwayne Akina back. He's the guy that had Michael Huff, Michael Griffin, Aaron Ross, Nathan Vasher, those guys in the secondary when we were DBU. He was going to come on as an analyst. He was at Arizona as an analyst, but they have offered him an on-field role. He hasn't 100% taken that yet, but I expect him to. It would make sense. But that's a name to keep an eye on because he was one of the people that wanted Johnny Nansen as head coach for Arizona. So Jacob Manu, keep an eye on that. And then Bill Norton, senior defensive tackle, 6'6", 325 pounds, 31 tackles on the year last year, and 2 forced fumbles. That's another name to keep an eye out on. Big guy, nose plugger. Run stuffer at the nose position. You're not going to be able to replace Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat. I think you can get close in the aggregate, but you're not going to be able to replace them. And that's kind of the same thing at the wide receiver position. Sark knows you're not going to be able to replace A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy 1-for-1, 2-for-2. But can you replace them with a lot of depth and talent? Yes, you can. And I think you did a fantastic job at the wide receiver position. The defensive tackle position, we need 1 or 2 guys there. We need 1 or 2 guys. And here's another guy I'll mention. Jaheim Otis from Alabama. 6'5", 320 pounds. He's a sophomore, 26 tackles, half a sack last year. If we could land both, and Jacob Manu. If we land all three of these guys, we should be preseason number 2. We should be preseason number 2. I think right now, if I had to put us early predictions, I think Ohio State and Oregon are probably slightly ahead of us. I think we're 4. If we land Jacob Manu plus Jamar Muhammad, Amari Niblack, Bill Norton, and Jaheim Otis, we are the number 2 team in the country. I think it's Georgia and then us. And then I think there's even a little bit of a drop off after that. I think there's Georgia, slight drop off, Texas, slight drop off, Ohio State, slight drop off, Oregon, slight drop off. And then there's a big drop off after that, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting, guys. Those are the guys you definitely keep an eye on. Jacob Manu, middle linebacker, Arizona. Bill Norton, nose tackle, Arizona. And Jaheim Otis, nose tackle at Alabama. And then obviously Jamar Muhammad from Washington, Amari Niblack are on the hook. I expect Niblack to be here by the end of the weekend, if not probably tomorrow night. And Jabbar Muhammad, keep an eye out because he is visiting Alabama the next day and a half, 2 days, and then possibly Oregon. So we'll see, but I expect him to wrap this up by next Wednesday or Thursday. So keep an eye out on that if you're a Texas or SEC fan. We'll jump into your comments, and then we will talk about who I believe the next defensive line coach will be. But before I do that, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel. Share this content. Thank you guys for doing that. I'm glad Texas A&M is back. I just wonder if it will share the Thanksgiving. So I don't think it will. I think it'll be on that Black Friday. I think it'll be Black Friday night, Jackson. I think the Egg Bowl is its own special thing right now, as it should be. It's been around, and it hasn't been, there hasn't been a big break in between. So I think it should be its own thing. I think will be Friday night. Because of it sharing the Thanksgiving spotlight, I'll flip between the Texas A&M game, the Egg Bowl, and the NFL. Yeah, that's a lot of games. That's why I think just go to Friday night, be your own thing. Guys, our next defensive line coach is that name right there. I believe it is Roderick Wright. He played here at Texas from 2002 to 2005. He was the Big 12 defensive freshman of the year when he was here. He was a good player, got drafted to the NFL. He is the assistant defensive line coach for the Houston Texans, and it has been said for about 3 to 4 days. Sark knows who the defensive line coach is. It just hasn't gotten out yet, which props to the Texas and staff and university for a hire like this not to have gotten out is really good. It's just a guess because why else wouldn't you announce it? The only reason you wouldn't announce it is the guys in the NFL. Who has a tie to Texas from the NFL? The assistant defensive line coach for the Texans, Roderick Wright. So I fully expect him to be the Texas defensive line coach. So that'll be nice. He was with the University of Miami last year as a defensive ends coach, so he has a little bit of experience recruiting in college, not much. He also started a long time ago at Texas, his coaching career as an assistant coach. So I think it's a good hire. He knows the NFL. He knows college. He played in the NFL. That carries a lot of weight recruiting. He also can't do much worse than Bo Davis. Bo Davis was not a great recruiter, fantastic developer, but if you look at the guys he did develop, they were really none of those guys were his guys. So if Roderick Wright can be better at recruiting and then like 80 to 90% of the developer, I think you end up with about the same results. So I really like the hire. I like that you went to the NFL. And you get a Texas guy back. So that's always nice as well. I can't really say anything negative about the guy. He was great while he was here. He seems like a really good coach. Listen, if D'Amico Ryans picks you as a head or as a guy to be on his staff, I think you're going to be a decent assistant coach, head coach at some point. So I'd like the hire. I think it's a good hire. You bring a guy back to Texas. And I think that's going to do it for tonight, guys. It's been awesome to talk with you. I guarantee you we'll have a lot to talk about by next Wednesday. We could have 2 or 3 more guys on board. And if the Texans lose, we can talk to Roderick Wright even more and what he said and why he decided to come back. I could be wrong. That's another thing. It could be a shocking hire from the NFL. So who knows? But that's what I think it's going to be. I really appreciate this, guys. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out what we're trying to build. Share this out with your friends, family, neighbors, anyone who enjoys SEC or Texas football. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And this has been the 30th edition of the Bleeding Burnt Orange Show here. I am your host, Matthew Miller. Hook 'em, guys. And until next time, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on the SEC and SG1 Sports Texas channel. Hook 'em, guys.